Good morning, YouTube. This is LA Prepper. I know it's been a couple days since I made a video. I've been taking a little R&R time, doing a little plastic manufacturing. Was going to thinking about getting out of town this week on a little trip, but my savings account is a little sad at the moment. But anyways, in Venezuela, hungry child gangs use machetes to fight for quality garbage. Let's see. So there's a gang of children the adults call the Chaco. 15 members ranging in age from 10 to 23 survive vicious fights. Jesus. Yeah, I'm just reading through the article here. Forgive me. Clashes with Los Mercedes group toughened them up. There are at least 10 gangs in the capital. There are always children in the street in Venezuela, but now we are seeing a new phenomenon. Kids get more food on the street than at their homes. Yeah, oh gee, can you imagine that? Can you imagine your kid doing better in a gang on the street than they are at home? That's why we prep, people. We prep so that our kids can get more food at home than they do on the street, so that we don't have to convince them not to join a gang to go fight for their survival. Now, this might seem like I'm just picking on Venezuela. Gangs are a problem all across the world. They seem to be like a plague upon the people of this earth. Now, I don't know a lot about gangs. Never really met any gang members. Maybe I have and I just didn't know it. But there are a lot of things that draw people to that type of behavior. You know, some people who maybe aren't familiar with gangs or the criminal mindset might think, well, that's only in really rough parts of the world, or that's only for people who have nothing and no way of, ever providing for themselves. And that's not true. There are people from perfectly nice parts of the world, like California, if that's a nice part of the world, who join gangs, people who have money, people who live in countries that have welfare and housing programs and food stamps, and they still join gangs. There's a lot of different reasons people might want to act in that kind of way, and I think a lot of it has to do with the psychology of the human mind, of being able to feel like you're in control, you have power over your destiny. Imagine kid A and B, let's say they're friends. Kid A stays at home, is a little hungry, and Kid B joins the gang. Kid B comes home on a break from the gang or something and tells his friend, Kid A, hey, these guys are cool, or these guys and gals are cool. We're getting, life's hard and we have to fight, but we're getting a little bit of food and, I'm not as hungry as I was yesterday. That kind of argument to a young kid or even a middle-aged kid, even a 20-year-old or a 21-year-old young adult, until you're kind of a little bit older and more mature in life and realize the kind of insidious way that gangs groom their members for this sort of life of crime and war against everyone that would oppose them, it seems attractive, Be accepted, be fed, taken care of. Gangs don't recruit with shitty marketing, right? At least I would be very surprised if they did. Their recruits are essentially volunteers, whether or not all of them stay or however that works. it would be my belief that the majority of gang members are voluntary recruits. Now, does that mean that anyone has the same propensity to volunteer to be in a gang? Well, I don't know. I think being in a tough part of town, or maybe living somewhere where you have more gang members, I think it's a little bit higher chance that you would be involved in something like that, as opposed to just some random kid living in Beverly Hills. I don't know what the chance they're just gonna feel like joining a gang and go find one is, but scary stuff, right? Are you sure that your kids know the difference between right and wrong enough that they would be able to resist that kind of draw? It's crazy. I left because I got beaten badly, Caramella says about her mother, a drug addict. The previous sentence says it's not hunger alone sending children onto the streets. Oof. Wow. Why should they own the garbage? Asked 22-year-old Andy, who comes from Petare. Venezuela got mean. Nobody is generous anymore. That means I have to get nasty and fight to survive, admitting he owns a machete to, quote, look scary. This is a really interesting sentence. Venezuela got mean. Nobody is generous anymore. And perhaps he's right, Perhaps it's not so, maybe in their perspective, mean is not being as generous as they used to be. Perhaps their society was a lot more generous and giving when they all were able to take better care of themselves. And now that they're dealing with so many problems and have been for a while, everyone is, focusing more on taking care of themselves and less able to help their neighbor. Very, very interesting statement on life. Let me just save this article before I lose track of it. He believes the children manipulate people by trying to pull on their heartstrings. They smudge some dirt over their faces and put on tattered cloth to look miserable. Isn't that insidious? I mean, it's an allegation, I suppose, but... When you smoke, you don't feel hungry, explains Patricio about crack. Here we have Yordi, a 14-year-old who's smoking marijuana on the streets of Caracas. So, what does this mean for you, the American prepper, or maybe the international prepper? Does it mean you have to talk to your kids about gangs tonight? Well, if you've never talked to your kids about gangs, it's not a terrible time to. You might think you have the biggest angels in the world, but it's still important to talk to your kids about stuff like this, because life's a little more complicated sometimes when you're young. Things don't make as much sense as they do when you get a little bit older and you have more perspective on things. Crazy story. Well, until next time, YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what's going on with your preps this week. And keep prepping.